Executive Director of Digital Strategy. I'm super excited for our topic and guest today, but before we dive in, a quick reminder. The information provided during this event is for informational purposes only. So for any medical questions, please reach out to your primary care doctor or healthcare professional, maybe even a Providence healthcare professional, just saying. Now let's go ahead and jump in. So joining me for this live event is Andy Chu, who's our Senior Vice President of Product and Technology Incubation, and Dr. Susan Huang, Chief Medical Officer of the Providence South Division. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So today we're talking hackathon. To start off, just give me a little context. The Providence Digital Innovation Group recently hosted a hackathon. Could you tell us a bit about the event? Who's involved? How does it work? And what's the output? Andy?
Yep. Thanks, Matt. Yeah, so the hackathon happened a little over a month ago. It was a 3-day event where we brought in our developers, product managers, designers, clinicians, and MAs and other clinical and front-end staff to participate as part of the hackathon. We have folks really across the United States, as well as folks from our Indian Development Center through this event. And there are a number of executive sponsored ideas, including myself, Dr. Wong, and Dr. Brendan Lloyd, as well as Jeff Logan from our RevCycle team. And in addition to that, the teams can have their own ideas. So it's all self-formulated, and the teams get to pick what project they want to work on. And at the end of those 3 days, there are a number of us on the panel, and we judge those ideas. And there's a set of criteria how we evaluate those hackathon and determine winners from there.
That's super exciting. And, we think of hackathons as being, a tech industry, big tech startup-y kind of a thing. But Andy, in your mind, what's the value of a hackathon, and why is it really important for somebody like a health system to do it?
Yeah, I think, a lot of people think health system move extremely slow. And I think there are good reasons why, we have to move to a certain pace. However, when we start looking at hackathon, the main idea is to look at where are some of the inefficiency, where are some of the things that we can continue to improve. Obviously, over the years, there are a lot of processes, and some of them could be fairly manual, right? So I think that's where that's why we put these hackathons in place, and partnering very closely with our frontline folks and clinicians, and see what technologies can do to make people's lives easier. So that's one of the main idea and why we want to do hackathon.
And that clinician involvement is super critical in this case. So tell us a little bit more about how they got involved and what they really brought to the teams.
Right. So, I mean, at the end of the day, the clinicians, the MAs, the nursing staff, they are in the front line. They're dealing with patients on day in and day out basis. They have to, in a way, they have to hack the system to make their life easier, right? So I think is our job as technologists, product people, designers, to partner very closely with them, to have a different point of view and a different lens, and see what we can do utilizing existing technologies, using design elements, and how to make their life easier. So that's why it's super critical to partner with our clinician, with our frontline staff, to make those things happen. Because otherwise, we're just building technology, building product in a vacuum. That doesn't help. So it's really coming down to being close to our partners, to our customers in that way.
And Dr. Wong, you were one of the many clinicians that teamed up for this hackathon. So tell us a bit about how you've seen technology potentially improving your ability to deliver care.
Yeah, so I think technology is absolutely critical to our ability to deliver care. And, first I think about the efficiency of how we can deliver care. And, there is so much that falls on the shoulders of our clinical caregivers, of our providers, of our doctors, nurses, so on and so forth. And if we can make that easier, they can then really focus on what they're there to do and deliver that excellent care. And I think furthermore, it's not just about our ability to deliver care, but it's about our ability to deliver excellent, high quality, very personal, affordable and accessible care. So, taking it to that next level, if we want to enable that sort of very special care, then I think we have to look to technology to help us be better predictors of how we deliver that high quality care, to help us triage, to be more efficient in our operations or find information quickly. We can't expect our clinicians, our caregivers to be super users. And yet with the way that healthcare systems are currently built, we sometimes do ask them to be super users of our care. So that's where I see that, Andy and his team of engineers, products, design can really step in and say, what are the tools that we can help to ease your way and augment what you do?
Absolutely. And it's not just about creating technical efficiencies, but easing that burden because we do ask so much of our care teams. So, Doctor, you posed some specific challenges to the team. Can you talk about a couple of those areas and why they were really important to you?
Yeah, so I'll start with one. And the title of this project was the Service Line Information Database. The actual project itself was to take a very manual process where a team was serving as the neuron or command center of matching up care and making it a little bit more automated and a little bit more kind of seamless and low friction. But I'll tell you why it's important, because I think this is important for people to know. So this team, it navigates people to the right type of care at the right place with the right provider, where they have the right expertise. And during COVID, patients who would develop kind of severe illness, maybe they're in the ICU, and sometimes they would need even higher levels of very specialized care. They would need something called ECMO. And what ECMO does is it's a machine that would take the blood from the body and then oxygenate it, put oxygen in the blood so the blood could then be circulated back into the body, where then it could flow to feed the vital organs, the brain, the heart, kidneys, lungs, so on and so forth. Now, not every hospital has ECMO, but in Southern California, we do have ECMO within Providence. So a lot of patients, they would come from Nevada, from Arizona, all over California, really a broad swath of geography. And this enabled them to get that specialized care. In some cases, we were able to save those patients. In other cases, what ECMO allowed us to do was maybe allow the family to spend some extra time with the patient, maybe allow the family to, say goodbyes before they lost their loved one. We had a member of the LAPD, and I'm not breaking HIPAA here, who was one of those patients, and he's posted about it since, and he received ECMO and he survived from COVID. So really, it's those patient stories, why we're doing what we're doing. It's not just a technical solution. What this enables is actually the care for us to really save people's lives in some case deliver that care when they need them. Another one that I'll just quickly talk about is on easing the way for future visit reminders and appointment scheduling. This is something that Dr. Lloyd and I posited forth as a project. And we know how hard it can be to sometimes schedule an appointment. And we all have really, really busy lives. And I take myself as a mom as well. So if you have someone who's really busy and they're due for a mammogram or a colonoscopy, maybe they're not due for several months, or maybe, the time frame by which they need to get that test is a year. It's hard for people to really remember that. So we can ease their way by making that a lot more automated. And in some cases, even my yearly physical, right? The gone are the days where you've got a paper journal and you're marking on that. So again, we can ease people's ways by creating tools to automate that ability for them to get that reminder and then schedule that appointment.
As somebody who forgets that I had a restaurant reservation until they text me about it a day before, I deeply sympathize with this challenge. And now I have a baby at home who also has a slew of appointments that, God bless our teams that help us keep them straight. But yeah, certainly anyone who's dealt with healthcare systems familiar with this challenge. Andy, flip back to you a bit. What's the value of having these clinical experts sitting shoulder to shoulder with you? You come from a tech world. You're surrounded by a lot of folks who are very talented in their field, but bringing in these clinicians and taking time out of their day, what value do they bring to these teams?
Yeah, actually, myself and my teams we love actually partnering with our clinical team. It's absolutely amazing. Susan talked about a couple of the examples. We spend a lot of time talking with the patients and consumers, but again, it's very important also looking at from a clinical team's perspective, the frontline perspective. So we're really just trying to connect the dots across the entire value chain, right? And see where technology, where product, where design can really comes in and really helping our patients and helping our caregivers on the front line. And that's why it's super important. Back to the earlier point, the frontline staff, they're the ones actually dealing with all these issues, right? We would never have, thought about that issue around referral. And if you haven't, walked the shoes within, the caregivers, you would never know. So I think it's super crucial to continue to partner very closely with our clinical teams as we continue to build great products and great experiences while we're focusing on the inpatients. But our frontline staff are the ones that actually are delivering the care. So it's very important to understand their perspective.
Absolutely. And I've witnessed this myself, but having these product teams sit inside the health system, not just sort of an external consultancy or startup or anything, but really sit in the health system, doesn't only give DIG access to the leadership and, the tech stack of a large health system, but the real on the ground workflows and care teams and subject matter experts of the delivery of care that can, having that kind of access can really change the way that we design products. And it's exciting to see how many touch points we have and how often we kind of go to that well, because it's really core to the business.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I know we're not ready to share the winning ideas quickly, so I asked. But can you talk a bit about what sort of makes for a great hackathon project? And I'll ask each of you, but I want to start with Dr. Huang.
Yeah, so I think number one, a lot of the value from these hackathons is the diversity of the team members. So I think the project really needs to be something that different team members can all contribute to. So Andy had mentioned before, developers, product design, clinicians, has to be something that really maximizes that value of their coming together and working on a project. I think number two is it has to be something that is scoped for a 3-day event, right? So you're not going to boil the ocean, but something that in 3 days you can come up with something that will develop the momentum, jumpstart potential future work, right? So there's a tangible output that comes out of those 3 days. So I would kind of point to those two characteristics.
Andy, what about you? What makes for a great hackathon? Yeah, I think similar to what Susan mentioned, right? So it has to be, you need to be able to put your arms around it. It's just also is not a bunch of front-end user experience. We have definitely seen some hackathon ideas and solution. They built a great front end, but actually ignore all the back end systems, right? Which is oftentimes the hardest part. So I think it had to be scoped correctly, and then you have enough meat on the bone, so that when we all look at a specific project, there's a specific use case that you're trying to solve for. From a product standpoint, you can always grow from there, but that has to almost define the pre-MVP of what you're trying to solve for, and really showcasing the end-to-end solution. I think that's what makes a great winning project, but also a great hackathon project.
That's great. Now, so sort of beyond the actual ideas that came out, holistically, what were going to be some of your biggest takeaways or learnings from the event? Andy, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so I think, as someone, as we're continue to think about from a platform standpoint, not just building, point solutions, we're always trying to connect the dots. And oftentimes when we are talking to the various clinical teams, frontline staff, operations team, they all think they're very unique, which they are, right, from their perspective. But when you actually step back, there are a lot of common components that we can build, actually serve the needs of a lot of different teams, right? So I think as we go through some of these ideas, I definitely see there are multiple themes have come across that's applicable, not just one team, but actually multiple team and potentially across the entire system, and potentially outside of for other health system to consume as well. So I think that's continuing one big takeaway that I got from the hackathon.
Dr. Wong, what about you?
Yeah, so couple things for me. I think one, it was just really amazing to witness some of these conversations amongst the teams. And, sometimes we all speak our own language depending on what our background is. So developers will speak their language, product will speak their own product language, design, will speak their own design language. And certainly clinicians and doctors will speak their medical language as well. But when you bring everyone together, the goal is to have everyone speak that common language. And that's what I witnessed, was that people were starting to speak that common language. And, you could see where, sometimes engineers would say, well, clinically, does this make sense, right? And then the clinician could help fill in that gap. And then kind of vice versa, a clinician might say, well, I have this idea, but is it feasible, right? Is it technically feasible? So you could actually see those bridges occurring. And I think even beyond that, even beyond the content or subject matter expertise or skills, I think it's also different approaches, right? Because I think inherently engineers, product, user experience, design, clinical, they approach healthcare problems in a different way. So even kind of learning different ways to do work is inherently valuable. So I really do see the value of these types of events so that we have that collaborative learning. I think number two is sometimes we think of technology and healthcare systems, and one's very kind of avant-garde on the forefront, the other one's seen as very traditional. But there's a place, but the mission, right? The core mission is the same. And I think of our Providence promise of know me, care for me, ease my way. Providence was started by sisters over 100 years ago. These were women who went and essentially fundraised and raised money, right? Kind of not unlike modern day entrepreneurs, right? But I think of that promise, the know me part, right? That's kind of that design, human-centered design focus, really understanding the user, your audience, your customer. The care for me part, well, how are we going to make that experience viable? And then ease my way. What are those tools? What are we building, right? That is truly going to help someone. And for us in healthcare, that means our patients, our communities, our caregivers, our providers, our doctors, nurses, and so on and so forth. So, I think that the takeaway was, events like this will be, a critical part as we think about moving forward so that we can ultimately kind of deliver on our promise of healthcare to all our patients.
Absolutely. And just speaking for myself, I love hackathon season because everyone enters it excited, comes out re-energized with a bunch of new ideas and a bunch of new perspectives. I think we always tackle problems a little bit more creatively in the weeks and even different areas, a little more creatively than we do sometimes. So it's amazing to see. And thank you both for being such leaders for the event. That concludes our questions for the day. I want to thank both Andy and Dr. Huang for joining, and everyone for listening. To learn more about some of our initiatives, programs, services, ways to give, or of course, if you're looking for medical care, please go online and visit us at providence.org. Also, make sure to follow us on social media. We've got a few different ones, but Instagram is Providence Health System. For LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram, and it's just Providence on Twitter. I may have gotten that wrong. Anyway, we'll find you. But thank you so much for joining. and have a great day.